What we don't want to do is create this fictitious or plant false memories in a child's mind to make them think that a parent was abusive when they really weren't, just because you're trying to sway family court. Because remember, it's the win-lose thing. So you don't want to try to make up stuff, lies, and spin these narratives and try to put false allegations out there just so that you can win your case. And especially if that is a loving parent, you almost have to become more mature. You have to think of your child. You have to love them.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today on Narcissist. I'm asking for a friend. I'm Karen Maldonado, and this is my co-host, Tyler King, and we're so glad to be with you today. We're going to talk today about co-parenting with a narcissist. So I thought that today would be a really good day for us to ask Tyler a little bit about what her experience has been and how maybe she can even give some good pointers. She's got older kids, but she's worked through some things, and I think having heard from her will be helpful to you. So Tyler, can you just tell us maybe what you feel, what comes to your mind when I say, what might be some helpful information that you could share with our listeners?
Yeah, definitely. And just so when we know, whenever we're talking about the narcissist, we're not trying to bash anyone. So we're always coming from a place of we're trying to help, inform, and help you to navigate through these relationships in a healthy way, emotionally for yourself. And in this case, where we're talking about children, so that everyone, can move forward, in a healthy relationship, if that's possible. Because we know toxic relationships are tricky, narcissism and dealing with people that have those traits can be, very trying and very toiling, especially emotionally.
Yes.
So we definitely want to always be very sensitive, take it from a Christian perspective, and never bash anyone. So when we're talking about this subject, yes, it is near and dear to my heart, because co-parenting is, the most important thing you can do. I think, besides receiving the salvation, right, is you have someone that you love, connect with, and you have these beautiful children that you bring into the world, right? And then for whatever reason, whether it's because the relationship just becomes toxic or whatever happens, that causes the relationship to no longer be a loving relationship, and then you end up having to go the route of co-parenting and parenting separately. It can be very hard, especially if you're going through the court system. So Karen, have you ever had anyone or any of your clients go through the court system or navigated through that?
Yes, I have, and I know that it can be very tricky, and to be with a narcissist can make it even more tricky, because a lot of times they feel like it's a competition, and I don't know if you experience that at all, but our listeners may have. And
Yes.
a difficult thing. And earlier in my life, I actually managed a law office for 4 years, and it was a law office that handled family court cases. And so I'm familiar with it on the side of the clients, and I'm, as clients of a lawyer, and then I'm also familiar with it as having clients now in my therapy practice. So yes, it's a difficult thing.
Yes, and definitely I'll say that when you're going through the family court, just know that if you have to go that route, if for whatever reason you can't just peacefully between you and the other parent, um, establish the agreements as far as when you're going to see the children, if you're going to live in the same area, who's going to go to what events, and how is it going to work, and then you're just butting heads to the point where it's like, okay, we need to go to court. Just know that, just like what Karen said, that it is a win-lose. It's almost like a competition. So if you are dealing with someone that's a narcissist, just know that it can become very competitive. It can get to a point where even a lot of lies are being told, a lot of even parental alienation can start coming into play. And what that is basically when one parent is trying to turn the child against the other parent, and basically make it seem like the other parent is unsafe, or the other parent doesn't love them, or that that they are the better parent, and basically trying to make that child just be devoted to them and have no type of loving relationship, which is natural. It's natural for a child to love a parent. But when you are training a child to hate the other parent or to be fearful and to not want to be around that parent, that's when it becomes, let's just be honest, it's abusive. Because that child, it's part of an emotional manipulation because they don't know, they're trusting you as a parent to guide them in the way of their best interest because they feel that you love them. And in the child's mind, why would you lead me the wrong way? But we all know that when you're dealing with narcissism, that whole thing just goes right out the window. It's all about them. They want the attention. They want the child to gather with them. And it just gets to the point where it could be so toxic that the child is now torn because now you're forcing them to hate half of themselves. So then there's a form of self-hatred that starts to happen within the child if you're not able to co-parent in a healthy way where they're able to freely show love to both parents. And of course, Karen, we always we're not putting every situation in this box because we do know that there are instances of abuse, whether it be physical, sexual, emotional things that may happen where it may make one parent unsafe. But what we don't want to do is create this fictitious or plant false memories in a child's mind to make them think that a parent was abusive when they really weren't, just because you're trying to sway family court. Because remember, it's the win-lose thing. So you don't want to try to make up stuff, lies, and spin these narratives and try to put false allegations out there just so that you can win your case. And especially if that is a loving parent, you almost have to become more mature. You have to think of your child. You have to love them. You have to put love first and the love of your child first and their best interest and what would be best for them. And what's in the best interest of the child is both parents being able to co-parent successfully and not go through a family court situation where they're going to be torn and maybe have to testify against one parent or the other, and they'll be forced to choose sides. And we have to understand that is so damaging to a child when they have to choose a side.
Is there a better way, Tyler, to so you don't wind up with that whole ugly family court situation?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There are ways where you can go through a mediation. This is one of the ways that I know and that I went through is going through a mediation. So that is basically if you're not with someone that's so narcissistic, because remember that the person has to be at a certain level of state of mind to be able to even be in agreement with going into that, right? So if you're able to get to a mediation where you have someone that's in the court assigned, could be an attorney or someone appointed by the court that's actually going to oversee everything that's going on. You're going to have meetings with them. You'll even, go to the lengths of even getting a coach, a parent coach. Now we know these days a lot of people are getting coaches for different things. What I would think, if you need coaching for something in your life, I understand everyone loves their career, but being a better parent, I think that's the best investment you could ever make. As far as in the future of your children and the relationship between you and that other parent, which we have to remember at one point you did maybe love that person. Well, I don't know, depending on how you got together and had the child. At one point you probably did love each other. So there has to be something in there where you can kind of put past the bitter past and the anger and the hatred of whatever it is that's going on and really have rational conversations. They teach you how to really talk with one another, how to reframe things instead of accusing and saying, well, you should have did this, you should have done that. I mean, we all could have, would have, should have all day long and Monday morning quarterback everything. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to sit down and say, okay, we understand that this happened, but this is how we're going to move forward from here.
Yes. And it's also good to say that, if you are, have had maybe this history with this person where the co-parenting hasn't been easy, but now, think about this, you may be so unhappy, but if what you're doing to the child by the tug of war that goes on is hurting them, then if not for each other, for that child or for the children, right? Keep the peace so that, and here's the other thing, they're watching their parents. They're
Oh yeah.
watching how their parents are working through relationship problems. And if
Yes.
every time they see you working through relationship problems, you're bickering, then they're
Mhm.
going to become fighters. They are going to want to bicker through everything. They're going, that's the way you've taught them. They're learning under your guidance. And so you have got to teach them how to listen.
Yes.
And you may not agree with the other person saying, but for you to be able to say something like, I may not agree with you, but coming from
Yes.
your perspective is different than mine. I can see where you would feel that way. And
Right.
so, let's try to think of a compromise because this is my perspective and we don't want there to be a rift between the two of us because then that just tears up our kids. So
Yeah.
let's try to do this in a way where we can show them
Hmm.
you can figure out a compromise in every situation if you really try. And what would be a good motivation for wanting to try? The kids.
The kids, always the kids. And that's the thing. The tricky part is as long as a person isn't like a truly narcissistic person, you can put those feelings aside and put the child first, and that's always the goal, the hope, where you would want things to end up. Because at the end of the day, like you said, children learn what they live, right? So if they see you always arguing, then that's how they're going to handle every situation. If they see you lying, so let's say you're lying on the other parent and making up stuff and spinning false narratives, then guess what? Don't be surprised if your child comes out to be a liar, right? And they start lying to you about things. Other thing is, if you, because you have an angst with your ex or the other parent, and then you allow that child to treat that other parent in a negative, nasty way, or to say, well, they're old enough to make their own decisions. So if they don't want to talk to you, they don't have to talk to you, or they allow the child to yell at the other parent or to, tell the parent, curse, scream, or whatever at them.
Right.
Don't be surprised when your child goes to school that they're cursing at their teachers, that they're telling the principal and calling them all types out their name. Don't be surprised if they get into issues with law enforcement or the school resource officer. Just don't be surprised if they have problems with authority, because guess what? The parent is the first authority figure in their life, right? So if you break down that, what do they call it? If you blur the lines and they're not able to understand like authority figure and the need to have respect for them and to know how to talk with them in a respectful manner, they don't just say, oh, I'm going to talk to my parent that my dad or mom doesn't like this way, but every other authority figure, I'm going to be nice to them and respectful. No, it's a one and all. It's like how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So if you treat one parent like, very disrespectful, they're going to treat every adult and authority figure in a disrespectful manner. And so at the end of the day, I'm not trying to put anything out there, but if you notice your child is having a lot of issues with authority and respect and treating adults in a certain kind of way, look at how you and your other, your spouse or significant other, whoever it is, look at how you all are treating each other and allowing the child to treat that other parent.
Yes.
It could play a factor, not always, but there is a correlation there to a degree.
Yeah, it's learned behavior for sure.
It's learned behavior. So that's what we always want to do. And when you're going through these co-parenting sessions, as far as with like through a coach, be receptive to the process. Just be open. Always. Oh, another thing I have to say, Karen, is I would like to share, do not put your child in adult conversations. That is not, they don't need to be involved in the history of what happened, if there was an affair, if there was any type of things going on that, that really a child can't do anything about it anyway. They may understand that you have an agreement and you don't love each other and you don't want to be together anymore, but don't start involving them into the oh, do you know what your dad did today, or do you know what your mom did, and blah blah blah, and start
Right.
bad mouthing the mom or the dad to the child, because what do you expect the child to do? What do you want them to say?
Right, right. And I do think though, in some cases, because I know of some situations where the kids are so smart, they're older. I'm talking about
Yes.
kids. Little kids don't know if there's, like you brought up the idea of maybe an affair. So
Right.
some older kids will go to the other parent and say, is mommy or daddy having an affair? At
Mm,
that point, I would not lie to them, but I would not give them information. In other words, it's not your job. If the other parent had the affair, then I would say, I don't know, you'd have to ask. You'd have to ask him or you'd have to ask her. Because you don't want, like Tyler is saying, you don't want to cause the kids to have a negative feeling about either parent in this.
right.
You don't want them to feel like they have to take sides, and knowing that kind of information will make them feel like they have to take sides. And by not saying something to them, they're gonna know that that is what happened. So,
Yes. Yes.
so I think that, you take it off your responsibility to answer that and say, ask her or ask him.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a friend that was in a co-parenting situation, and it ended up being a whole custody thing, and there wasn't an affair that happened. And the sad part about what happened with that is that the father was, I don't want to call anyone names or say anyone's immature, but he just didn't use good judgment in sharing those details with her sons. And then what ended up happening was, I think she had three kids. Two of the sons were okay, but there was one son that just literally despised her. And like to this day, he just continues to despise her for that. And that is why you don't want to do that, because you're not thinking about when that child becomes an adult, what is his thoughts going to be about relationships, about women, about marriage, about
Right.
how he's going to trust. That's why you don't want to poison, and I'm going to just use that word, your children against the other parent, because you're not only bad mouthing that other parent, you are causing damage to your own child. And if this is someone you truly love, this is someone you claim to love, and you want to see the best for them, do you think it's the best to put something in their mind that they can't ever get out, and
Right.
that they're going to be wrestling with it and grappling with it for years, and have this negative, hateful feeling towards a parent, which is half of them. So now they're hating half of themselves,
Right.
because you can't hate your parent and not hate yourself as well, because you're a part of them. You
Right.
have that DNA.
Yeah.
So it's what it is. And we're also, and if we want to go to it from a spiritual perspective, we always want to make sure that we're keeping that parental figure in high esteem as far as with the children, because it can also affect their ability to receive the Lord. To If they are struggling and have not received salvation, or they don't have a trust in God, like your parental figure is like the first instance of being able to,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? It's like almost like that foundation a little bit.
Yeah,
So
it helps the person that has a more,
Mhm.
safe feeling, loving, unconditional
Yes,
loving relationship with their parents to accept the Lord, because they understand what unconditional love feels like. And
yes,
if you throw in a bunch of, other things that a kid now has to,
yes,
process about parents, it just makes it more difficult. And yeah, some kids, like you said, two of them wound up okay, but one had a really hard time with it. So not every kid is gonna have a hard time with different things that they might know about a parent, but some kids it will affect them in a deeper way. And so definitely protecting them as much as you can. But like I said, if they're too smart, they see too much, they understand too much, and they ask questions, then you have to, you know, I think leave it with the parent, that if there was a parent that stepped out of line some way, I don't know, you'll have to ask them.
right. Yeah, you can, you don't have to share all the details, and that's the thing. If it was something, who knows, maybe the child witnessed something that was very inappropriate.
Right,
And you can't even act like you didn't know, you know what I mean? Because now it's like you know what I mean? Because now you're playing mind games with the child, right? So you be upfront and clear about it. But I would say don't elaborate and go into any details. Like tell them, like you said, Karen, have them ask the other parent if they did witness something or see something, like, because things do happen. People are careless when they're out there cheating and having these relationships, and they're out seeing places, and maybe a friend can say, hey, my mom and dad saw your dad with this other woman that wasn't your
Yes.
mom, and they were very cozy, and it happens. So
Yes.
acts that you, no matter how you feel, try to not be bitter about the situation. And I mean, that's easier said than done, right? But I can speak for it because I've been there, and I know there are other people that have. But we want to give you hope that, even in the midst of it being very bitter, and it was very hard, and at the end of the day, we were able to get to a point. It took some months, even years, to get into it, but you know what, we're finally in a good place, in a better place, and able to have conversations, able to be around each other. And I'm telling you, the kids love it, and they eat it up because it makes them feel so secure, it makes them feel so loved, it takes the pressure off of them, it makes
Right.
feel like, oh my gosh, I can go to my mom or my dad about anything, and I don't have to worry about them arguing about anything.
Yeah.
And it takes away the anxiety from the child and the depression from the child. It just, those mental health issues that can happen within the children. You just imagine, if you can parent and be mature and co-parent successfully, how you can make that child be so much more, that their mind can be so much more at ease, and
Yeah.
they'll be more emotionally stable, and
Exactly.
they'll be able to function normally in society, right?
That's so
um
good, Tyler.
yeah, because
Wow.
there's consequences to not doing things in a peaceful way, in God's way. There are consequences, and you will see that lived out in your children if you don't correct it and
Right.
do right by them now.
Yeah, and you want your kids to be kids. You don't want them dealing with adult issues. So
Mhm.
free them of that burden and just keep them, let them enjoy life. You guys have your conversations, have them separate, and have adult conversations where you can come to a compromise. But everything you shared, Tyler, I think that's going to be so helpful for our listeners. And so remember, listeners, to, share this information and subscribe and
And
follow.
comments,
Yeah,
yeah, make
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Questions. I mean, Tyler shared some good information there. She's lived through some of this, and so she, she'll have some answers too. And so please do feel free to talk to us about it. And so remember, keep looking at us on Narcissist. I'm asking for a friend, and Tyler and I will be back with you again next time.
See you soon.